welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody is having a fantastic start of your week. As we know, we are approaching August, which for me at least means it's time to start thinking about back to school. Scary, I know. I'm like already not sure how I feel about starting another year of university. It's like good vibes, but also like I know within like 2 weeks I'm gonna be like just overwhelmed with things. Last year I was doing a lot of research and watching a lot of videos like this last year, just kind of like trying to figure out which one I wanted to use for university. So I thought I would film one of these videos and give you guys my personal kind of take and experience from using both last year to tell you which one I think is really worth it and which one you need. So obviously the biggest question for people is, can you survive with just an iPad in university with no computer, MacBook, whatever you might be using? And my answer to that question, honestly, is it depends on your degree. Please do your research and think about your degree and what that actually is going to entail. Because if you have a degree where you're writing a bunch of papers, honestly, I tried writing papers using the iPad and I have an 11-inch iPad. So if you're gonna write papers on the iPad, please, I'd probably get a 13-inch iPad because this is just not, it's not quite big enough where it's comfortable to write on. And honestly, the iPad for writing papers just does not give the same feel as a computer. So if you're writing a ton of papers for university, I would probably say that you should get some form of a computer just to write your papers, because it's a little trickier on the iPad. I mean, you can, but it's not ideal. Also, you want to consider what programs you may need for college and university, because you don't want to have to end up using a school computer because it's super inconvenient. So if you may have a program that you need to download for your specific degree or specific class, and then you can't do that on an iPad, so you have to look into that. So I think that just you can do it, but really consider is most of your stuff by hand? Are you mostly writing notes? Is there not going to be a lot of papers, not a lot of online heavy work, because that may require you to have a laptop or computer desktop, something of that form. Start off by first talking about the pros and cons of the iPad, and then I'm going to do the same for the MacBook, just in my experience, what I found it was helpful for and what it was not so helpful for. So off, the pros of the iPad were that it's fantastic for taking notes. I love writing on the lecture slides during the lecture. I mean, I find when I would bring my laptop, I would want to type out everything, but when I had the lecture slides in front of me and I could just jot stuff down on my iPad with the Apple Pencil, it was just so convenient and definitely super quick for when you're in a lecture. Loved it. What I also love about this is being able to create digital flashcards. They are so helpful and really helps me to memorize a lot of the stuff that I needed for my classes, specifically psychology. I am a psych major, so for me there was a lot of memorization, and this iPad was really helpful for that. I also loved about the iPad, and still love about the iPad, is being able to create digital schedules and calendars and be able to write on my calendar like a little whiteboard. I love that. It helps me stay super organized for my classes. I love planning everything out, making a to-do list. I just love that. And also being able to create individual notebooks on my iPad that don't get lost. I am the worst for losing my physical paper notebooks, so this was so great to just be able to keep everything in one place, and also good for the environment because I'm not wasting a billion sheets of paper. If I make a mistake, you just erase it. It's love it. Another thing I want to bring up that was just super helpful is being able to use digital textbooks. I mean, textbooks you underestimate, even if it's just walking for 10 minutes around campus, you will underestimate how heavy they are. If you're carrying a 500-page hardcover textbook around with you, you are going to kill your back. Like, you will not. I tried that for one day. You will not recover. Having your textbooks digitally, and I know when you purchase the physical copy, because I know I also do enjoy the physical copy sometimes. Usually they come with a little QR code where you can scan to get the digital copy as well. And that is just so helpful to just have everything in one place. So if you forget to bring a textbook, it's right here on your iPad, and I think that is so helpful. Okay, now I just want to go on to mention a couple cons about the iPad that like maybe would be better on a computer. Trying to save things to files on the iPad to like submit it or like change it to something else, it's like a little trickier, and it's easier to navigate that type of thing on a computer. As well as like if you ever do any video editing, which sometimes I like to do my iPad, but it's definitely easier on the computer. Like some programs just are not as easy to use. Also for like writing papers, I do not enjoy writing a paper on an iPad. I find it's weird with the way the mouse works, and just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel the same as writing a paper on a computer. I much prefer writing that on my Mac, which is like, I guess, a personal preference, but I find that type of thing can get annoying on the iPad. The other thing is battery life. I think the battery life on the iPad is okay, but it's definitely not as good as a computer. So if you want it to last all day, you probably are gonna have to charge it in between if you're using it for everything. The other thing is overheating. I definitely think that I try to edit a video or download a bunch of stuff onto my iPad at once, it will overheat, and it will feel like there's a fire gonna happen inside my iPad. I'm like, oh my god, like I think it's gonna explode. It never does, and it's usually fine, but like definitely the iPad is not, like, it does not love when I try to do a bunch of stuff at once, like heavy duty stuff, that is so much better on a computer. As I previously mentioned, the other con of the iPad is just like certain programs you can't download on an iPad that you can only download on a computer. So, I mean, I haven't had that problem with my degree, but I know other people who are doing other degrees other than psychology do need specific programs for their classes, so you may want to consider that based on your degree. Now let's move on to talking about the MacBook. I have the MacBook with the M1 chip. It is the 2021 or 2022, I think it's 2021 MacBook. And I've been using it for a year now, and I absolutely love it. It's been able to hold all of my papers, everything, no issues. I'm definitely a light computer user. Like, I'm not doing really complex stuff on my computer. I mostly just use it to write papers, do like video editing, nothing super major. So let's consider that when you're taking my advice. For me, I think the biggest thing that I love about the MacBook is just like, it's super light. So it goes right into my backpack with no issues. It's not taking up bunch of space. What I also love is that the battery life literally lasts all day, sometimes even 2 days. Like, I will charge it, be at the university all day, and I'm still good. I've never ever ran out of battery with this. I find that I know we're on like the M3 chip, but I find the M1 chip is enough for me. I am able to do everything. It's very fast, very efficient. I can save everything onto my Mac. It's great. I think the biggest thing for me is I just love being able to type, and I love that the keys light up. That's super helpful, so I can do things in the dark. Obviously, don't write papers in the dark, it's probably not good, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I think the biggest thing for me that the Mac does is just like how nicely I can write my papers. I like typing them out. I'm not writing a paper by hand, so no. But I also like that I can sync anything from my iPad or my phone to my MacBook so easily. Like, if you have an iPhone, you can just airdrop anything to the MacBook. You can copy and paste anything. So if you're like trying to get something off the internet but you don't open a new tab, you can just like copy and paste, and I love that. Also, I can have like a million tabs open on my Mac and it never overheats. She does not freak out when I do video editing or I'm just on it all day. It's not overheating. I don't feel like it's gonna explode like my iPad. And this iPad is the newest iPad Air. It's the iPad Air 6th generation with the M2 chip, so this thing overheats. And it's so skinny, that's probably why it overheats. But this, I would just say, like, the MacBook feels like it can accomplish so much more without like having a panic attack. I think that if you are a degree that needs to do a little bit more work, like on papers, or you do a lot of research, that is definitely easier on the MacBook. Also, when I talked earlier about digital flashcards, you can 100% do digital flashcards on your MacBook. I absolutely love just being able to click through my flashcards. I can type the answer and then see it. You can definitely do that. So a lot of the things besides writing, besides like being able to physically write on it, all the things I can do on my iPad, I can do on my MacBook for sure. Now, let's get on to the main question. Should you get an iPad or should you get a MacBook if you could only choose one? Now, if you already own a computer that maybe is a little slower and it's not as good, so you're thinking, should I buy an iPad or a new computer for school? And I think in that case, I would get an iPad if, you know, you're just planning on writing papers on the computer and yours works perfectly fine. Then you don't need a brand new computer for school if you're just gonna be writing papers on it. The same goes for if you have maybe an older iPad model. Like, I know some people who still use like the, you know, like 6th, 7th generation iPad just for notes, and that works perfectly fine. So if you have an older iPad and you just want to use it for notes, and then transfer those notes to your MacBook after, that would work perfectly fine. So if you own either one of these, get the, like, you don't need the newest one. I had the iPad 9th generation before and I actually broke mine. That's why I ended up getting a new one, but it worked perfectly fine. I was able to do everything on it. So if you have an older iPad, that should definitely work. Don't go out and purchase the newest iPad if it's not in the budget. But what if you don't have either of these? Should you get a MacBook or an iPad? And what I have to say about that is, honestly, the iPad for sure is not a cheaper alternative. I think like it seems that way to some people. If you have to buy a keyboard, an Apple Pencil, and the iPad with probably extra storage, if that's the only device you're using, it is actually probably gonna be more than just buying a regular MacBook Air. So it is not a cheaper alternative, that's for sure. I would say you definitely, if your degree again is mostly just notes based and maybe memorization and you just have to write a couple papers here and there, you could definitely survive with just the iPad. But if I had to choose one that I think it would be harder to go without, that would be my MacBook. I think that like if you can only choose one and don't have either, I would definitely go for the MacBook, just because it, like, having a computer in university is kind of a necessity. They do assume that you have a computer. I have classes where we have to take exams on our personal computers. So I just think that if you're gonna only pick one, maybe just get the MacBook, and you can always get an iPad secondhand for a cheaper price too. They're always selling on Basic Marketplace. You can buy them at Apple. You can buy like the refurbished ones. Best Buy sells a lot of refurbished iPads. Like, you can definitely buy refurbished tech if you think that, you know, maybe you want to just try out having an iPad. And again, the iPad also doesn't work for everybody. Like, I don't know anybody who computer doesn't work for them, But I know there are some people who like just using the iPad isn't effective for them. So if I had to give up one, I'd say I don't know if you can really do university without a computer, but if you can, by all means, like that's just my opinion. So all in all, I'd say like you can't survive without a computer, but if you already own a computer, you should get an iPad. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and comment down below any other videos you would like to see in the future.